What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Discordant podcast. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the new highly anticipated Foo Fighters record, Medicine at Midnight. The world of rock music has been super pumped for this album ever since January of 2020, I would say, when Dave Grohl posted a picture of his vocal recording studio, which featured a microphone set up inside a bathtub, no joke. It's safe to say that everyone was excited and couldn't wait for the release. And all of this built-up hype and excitement makes the album that much more upsetting as a fan. Medicine at Midnight is the Foo Fighters' 10th studio album, and it was supposed to come out in 2020 itself, but it was delayed because I'm not sure if you guys have realized, but there's a deadly global pandemic going around, and they were planning to go on tour along with the album release. But I guess they eventually changed their mind and released it in February of 2021 once they realized that this pandemic is never going away. Moving away from COVID on a lighter tone, no, never mind, this is kinda sad too. In my opinion, the album is straight up underwhelming, and after all of the hype, it's extremely disappointing. A lot of the album is based on lazy repetitions of lazy melodies with lazy effects and lazy production. While there are exceptions, they're just that, exceptions, and a majority of the album is vague and forgettable. Throughout the album, most notably in the songs Chasing Birds and Waiting on a War, the vocal effect is insufferable and they ruin Grohl's vocals, which is unfortunate because Grohl's vocals on their own actually sound very good on this album, and his voice works despite the band taking a few different directions on this album. While the dynamic of different songs on Medicine to Midnight are quite varied, with songs like Shame Shame being more heartfelt and melodic, and songs like No Son of Mine and Holding Poison being more typically classic rock, the songs themselves are often very repetitive, an example being the song Shame Shame, which by the time the third chorus rolls around is honestly unlistenable from that point on. And it's not only Shame Shame. A lot of the songs from the album are very repetitive and become hard to listen to after a certain point. Another thing that makes this album difficult to listen to is the lack of effort put into the verses. While they have a lot of strong choruses like in the song No Son of Mine, Making a Fire and Chasing Birds, the verse melodies are generally bland and uninspired, and these lacking verses don't let you fully appreciate the good moments, which are usually the choruses of the songs. To their credit, there are songs like the song Love Dies Young, which in my opinion is the best produced song on the album and is a decently strong song from start to finish, but my point still stands for a majority of the album. And that's my main problem with this album. There are good sections, but these good sections are cancelled out by the amount of badly written material on the album. An example of this, which I call the Foo Fighters phenomenon, is the song Cloud Spotter. The song has a strong chorus if you ignore the hilariously cringy lyrics. Swing, swing, guillotine queen, swinging from the left to the right. But the verse again is a turn off as a listener. The melody honestly isn't too bad and I don't mind the octave doubled vocals, but the production is really the problem here, particularly for the guitars. Firstly, the guitars are overly distorted for this kind of song, and the overly distorted guitar sound, coupled with the hard left panning, is very annoying, especially on first listen where I had to take off my headphones to get through the song because of the viciously hard pan distorted guitar part. Another prime example of the Foo Fighters phenomenon is the song Shame Shame. The chorus is, in my opinion, so well made. While I can understand if people don't really like Grohl's voice on this type of song, I personally am a fan of it. The orchestration and instrumentals in the background are really well done and they don't sound lazily made or tacky like how orchestration often sounds on other pop and rock records. But the verse is just so bad. The guitar riff with the drum groove is decent, but the vocals... The first problem is the mix. The vocals are so low in the mix, but hey, I'm not complaining because the vocal melody is detestable. Wait, I don't have to say it so nicely. In my opinion, the vocal melody is just not good. It's mundane and it has no connection to the instrumentals. You could have taken any A minor backing instrumental and it would have sounded equally as disconnected to the melody. And don't even get me started on the pre-chorus. The pre-chorus features the same verse instrumentals with an even more uninspired melody. But at least the lyrics are good, right? Shame, 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 shame. Those are the legitimate lyrics. It sounds more like a bunch of school kids in their drummer's basement jamming for the first time ever, and less like an internationally acclaimed rock band who have released studio albums in the double digits. Overall, I'm just not a fan of this record. I feel like a lot of the album is poorly written and the parts that are well written are essentially drowned out by what's in between. For the most part, the vocals and the instrumentals on their own sound good with regards to the tone and the timbre of the sound and what they were going for. But as I said earlier, the tedious repetition and the weak melodies, in my opinion, is what pushes me away from this album. Now, all credit to the Foo Fighters. I mean, they were bold enough to explore some new directions on this album, which is a line that so many successful bands are afraid to cross. But some things work and some things don't, and in my opinion, this just didn't. Now, before I give my final rating, I just want to specify something about these ratings. While I do rate all of the albums that I review on a scale of 1 to 10, the way I review different genres of albums vary. I wouldn't review a metal album the same way I would review a pop album because I expect different things out of them. Each genre has a different style and has different aspects to be considered when they get reviewed. So if I give a thrash metal album a 5 on 10, which I would consider an average thrash metal album, and I give an indie pop album a 7 on 10, which would be an above average indie pop album, don't come at me like, "Hey yo, Vivin, you think that this pop nonsense is better than this metal masterpiece?" Because it doesn't necessarily mean that I believe the pop album is better than the metal album overall, or vice versa, if that makes any sense. All that aside, my final rating for this album is a 4 out of 10. It's an album that's disappointing considering all the hype around the album and around the Foo Fighters in general. There is some well-written material scattered throughout the album, but unfortunately it just doesn't do it for me. But hey, that's just my opinion. So that's it for now, guys. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the podcast on Spotify. And if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna make a lot more album reviews in the future, including a review of the new Madison Beer record, which is something that I'm currently working on. So stay tuned if you want to hear that as soon as it comes out. If there's an album that you want me to check out, let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're at it, I want to know, do you share my views on this record? Or do you think it's actually a really good record and that I've got it all wrong? That's all for now. See you in the next episode.